Before we get started with this episode, I just want to highlight some of the news that we just got recently. Sammy and I recorded this podcast yesterday before we got the new gameplay for the rest of the specialist. Definitely go check our YouTube channel, youtube.com/uplinkpodcast for the full details on everything on that update as well. So some of the stuff that we talk about in terms of the communication not getting anything is a little bit softened, so keep that in mind as you listen to us rant about the lack of communication in this episode. Thank you all so much, and here's the episode. Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I am joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's good to be back. Lots of very, controversial topics today. So
yeah, we're getting spicy
into this one.
So today on that topic, we're going to be talking about the beta and some of the leaks, rumors that are going around on that front, and the communication from the developers and the team around Battlefield 2042. So let's jump right into things. It's been a roller coaster being a fan of Battlefield 2042 and immersed in the content and being a content creator for Battlefield 2042.
It has. It's been lots of highs, and there's not really been too many proper lows yet. I have a feeling there might be, because generally gaming has lots of lows with bad launches or bugs or whatever, but it hasn't been too bad yet. But it's starting to. It's trending downhill at the moment. We're hoping we hear something to get us a bit excited.
Yeah, I like how it's trending downhill. I mean, 2021 has been a year full of kind of disappointments with the year that 2020 was. I think a lot of people have been really hyped around the games that were slated to come out around this time before COVID happened. And now that we are in kind of on the further side of COVID, people are really hyped, but we're also seeing a lot of those games either get delayed or confirmed to be infinitely delayed until some studios have said, hey, this game's not really working out for us right now. We'll come back to it at a later date.
Yeah, exactly. Even, what was it? The Lego Star Wars Battles, they cancelled it, and then now it's back.
That's true.
It's like, sorry, this game's been cancelled, and then I see the other day they're like, oh, we're actually gonna resurrect it, but only
it's
for
alive
Apple or something. So it's just it's all a bit of a shambles at the moment.
So it's nobody knows really what to expect. They just know that there is a possibility that things could go poorly. And I think we're all in that mindset with Battlefield 2042. So let's kind of jump in and talk about the open beta. We were talking about this right before we recorded, about how we were both very sure we saw the date 4th through the 6th. And I think, the 6th through the 9th was the date that we were thinking?
The 11th, I think.
The 11th,
It was
okay.
a whole week overall. And I think, the first 2 days were for pre-orders or something. But yeah, obviously we were both deceived, unfortunately.
Yes. Sadly, it is not the case, but we do have some pretty good rumors and leaks around the actual release date. I mean, even some websites were confused. There was a listing on a store, an online storefront that confirmed that had the dates that we all thought were there. So I don't know where the community brought these numbers out from, but we all saw them somehow. We all agreed that they were true. But we now know from Tom Henderson and a couple other reporters that September 22nd looks to be the time frame that we're going to be getting Battlefield 2042's open beta.
Yeah, it's I said this just before we started recording. On one hand, it's slightly disappointing because we sort of thought it was going to be a bit early. So now it's, an extra couple of weeks of waiting. But I'm probably overall just relieved that there is some, it's not really confirmation yet, but it's so many people are pointing to that date, and it just seems like that's probably going to be it. So I just really want them to come out and officially just say, whether they say the date or even if they just say it's going to be in the back half of the month or something, they just need to let us know that it's not this coming week, because a lot of people are hanging on to it being pretty soon. And I think it's a topic in itself, but the communication has for the most part, it hasn't been too bad so far. Like, the marketing, I thought, has been really good, but just the last, like, probably the last month nearly has just been a bit kind of quiet, and that's the worst thing you can do is just be quiet. Like, they need to just say anything, really. That's all they need to do.
Which we'll get into that in a little bit. These two topics are really closely tied together, but I want to kind of address the idea around a beta in, let's just say it's 100% confirmed that it's September 22nd that the beta is going to be out, and that the launch date for this game is locked at, for people who pre-order it, October 15th, and then for people who just the launch date itself is October 22nd. Let's just say that is confirmed. That is the thing that we're, for this hypothetical here. What place does this beta have? This is the idea that has been going, I've seen it so many times in conversations online, is that this is no longer a beta with this time frame. It is a demo.
Yeah, I actually saw, I think, are you referring to Flack's tweet from last night? Because I saw him say the same thing.
I've seen it from Flackfire. I've seen it from a couple other people as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, I'm kind of confused by it too. Like, obviously they work in that industry. They have a much better idea than any of us do about how to run a game and how to market it and all that type of thing. But the logical thing to me feels like doing it earlier is better for the game, because then they can actually implement the feedback. And if there's any bugs or something that's really unbalanced or whatever, they can actually have time to fix that. Because if this is going to be on the 22nd, let's just say it goes for, well, the 22nd I think was a Tuesday, so let's say it goes until the weekend, so 5 days, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the 27th, roughly, and then technically speaking, the game is launching in essentially 2 weeks after that. So they have to ship the game out, because there are, weirdly enough, I don't buy games like the physical copies, but there are still physical copies that I always forget about. They have to actually ship those out to the, the retailers and stuff. So I'd imagine that's a week-long process at least. Surely they don't just ship them 2 days before the game drops. So really there's only a week of wiggle room there. Like, then they can't surely implement all that in a week. So it's just kind of confusing that they would leave it so late. Maybe they're just confident enough that they've, that tech test that they did, that maybe sort of gave them all the data they needed, and they've fixed it, and they're really happy with it. And in that case, that's fine. Like, if it's just going to be more of a demo and they don't need to like fix it, I think then that's fine. But knowing how DICE games can often be, I'm really nervous that we're going to get the beta late in the month. It's going to be like buggy as all hell, and then they've got a week to fix it essentially. So I'm a little bit nervous about it, but like I said, they obviously know the gaming industry better than I do, so I'm not going to try and claim to know more than they do. But yeah, it's just a bit like confusing to me, really, I guess.
It is, and like you said, DICE has a kind of a track record with this that if they get super confident, that's not very good for the game.
Yeah.
I think if they are under the guise that they are going to have this beta and there aren't going to be big problems, they're fooling themselves. Multiplayer shooters are always buggy, and the big thing with the betas is to get that information. But betas more recently have come to be tied with the term demo. It's an idea. The game developers do get data from it. Of course, they get to understand how people are going to be playing the games, but the closeness of a game's beta to its release, the closer those two things are, the less likely they're going to be able to implement changes to big problems. We saw something like Battlefront 2. We're both big Star Wars fans, which is why we keep on mentioning it's how we got into the community of first-person shooters in terms of covering content. But Battlefront 2 was one of those games where the beta was fantastic. It was super great. And then the release came out and it was terrible. And it took 6 months for the game to even get back on track. So we lost 6 months of content and planned development by the team because of that misfire before the game even came out.
Yeah, that's like the prime example, isn't it? It's just like that's my biggest worry, is that the game doesn't hit the ground running and we can't get that content out there straight away, like they're going to have to spend, the first 3 months fixing some really like buggy, areas of the game or
yeah. I mean, if the
whatever the case
gameplay
may
is
be.
bad itself, let's just say the gunplay is hated by everyone. It's completely panned. Nobody likes it. And there's not going to be enough time to either roll back to a previous version or make those changes. Like, it's just not going to be a thing.
Yeah, that's like my main worry is that we get to the beta and there's like everyone's like, oh, what the hell is this? Like, this game isn't what I expected. And if it was 6 weeks to 2 months before launch, that gives them at least some leeway. They might still not get it perfectly fixed by the release date, but they can make a lot of progress in there. And then, maybe they need an extra month after launch to get it to where they want it to be. And that's fine. I think I give the game probably, until New Year's to, get rid of that stuff, because I think every game these days kind of launches a little bit shaky. And
every single game that releases, yes, you're going to buy it on disc, but you're going to have a hefty update as soon as you get it.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's just very confusing. Like I said, that I feel like they haven't learned that from previous things, which everything else that they've done, it feels like they are learning from their previous mistakes. But then with this, it just doesn't feel that way. But like I said, maybe they just are so confident that, they got rid of all the bugs with the alpha or whatever it was, the tech test. And maybe we're all just worrying about nothing, but it's just a bit like concerning, I guess. I'm not like stressing out. I don't think it's going to be a bust or something, but I'm just a bit like, I'm kind of on edge. I'm a bit like,
definitely,
this is very important time for the game, and it's just like, they've just made it a little bit riskier than it needed to be. So I guess we'll find out eventually, but it's very intriguing, I guess I would say.
It is. And I'm going to jump to the response of all of the fanboys out there. We're huge fans of this game, which is why we criticize it so much and so deeply, is because we want this game to do well. And yes, you may be tired and we may, oh my gosh, guys, we still have time. It's still pretty early. They haven't said that they're going to delay the game. Calm down. Okay. Yes, they haven't done any of that, but we have previous experiences with the franchise where we had the shaky launch. That was Battlefield 5 that turned people away from the Battlefield franchise and they went to Call of Duty. Like, there is a clear example of this in the past. So we do have some idea of what can happen if a game that we love launches to this kind of reception.
Yeah, I think the fans, like, we have, it is our responsibility on how we act around the game, but I think it's not necessarily our fault on how we are set up to feel about it, if that makes sense. Like, it's not our fault that the last game wasn't done properly. So even though we shouldn't jump to conclusions and we shouldn't be complaining already and all that type of thing, that's on us, but it is on DICE and EA that we have those preconceived, like, stresses about the game, because unfortunately, that's just history with the franchise, and not just this franchise, but same with Battlefront. And I think it's kind of like a two-way street where it's partly we need to maybe as fans like tone it down a bit and not stress so much, but then we're not just doing that for no reason. Like, I don't do this with other games, because if there's a game that I know is really, really good every year when it launches, I don't have these like worries about it. But for some reason with DICE games, I'm just always a little bit nervous, I guess.
I mean, it's they're something that super annoyed me is their response to it being September 1st and everybody wanting Battlefield news, and they posted that meme. Well, like, yeah, it's good to have this meme, guys, but it's kind of read the room first. Maybe.
Yeah, that was my exact thought, was like, on one hand, it's like, okay, they're acknowledging like that's how we feel, and they're just making a bit of fun, and that's all good. I love companies out there who don't take themselves too seriously. Like Xbox, their Twitter account is just hilarious and stuff like that. So on one side, I was like, okay, this is good. On the other side, I was like, now that you've done that, you really need to give us some information, because if you just meme your community and then leave us for 2 weeks to hear about something, that will not end well. So
exactly.
yeah,
And there was no previous example of them doing like the memes and stuff like that. It was like,
yeah,
I understand, because I am in marketing and I do social media management. I would be wanting to die if I was in charge of the Battlefield social media right now.
Yeah.
But still, read the room a little bit.
Yeah. I think like the thing for me, so like I woke up yesterday morning to that. I woke up at like 3:30, and that was the first
you got a
thing
notification that Battlefield tweeted something.
Yeah. So I saw that and I was like, okay, they've now acknowledged it. I kind of expected to wake up today, to be honest, to some information. I thought they might give it a day as a bit of a joke, and then they say something. But the fact that like now every day that they don't say something, that meme is actually making it worse, in my opinion. They have to back that up with some actual information. So even I don't need the date. I don't need the exact minute that it drops. I just need to know, like, yes, everything's on track, and it's going to be later.
Hey, it's going to be later in the month. We're going to do the dice thing. It's going to be the last single second of September, and that's when we're going to get it.
September 30 at 11:59 p.m.
Yes.
But that's the thing. Even if they just say that, then that's fine. Like, I'm happy. I've waited years for the game. I'll wait another couple of weeks. But it's just like being left in the dark is the part that really annoys me, and I think that's why the community is so sort of like
because we've seen it before.
Because exactly. It's just not the way to do it. I think they just need to communicate a little bit better, and I think they've done a decent job of it so far. Like I said, they've given us a ton of information before the game's even out. They've given us like the short film and all that type of thing, but they now need to. We're in the business end now. Like the beta is here, and then next month the game's launching. So this is the time when they kind of need to like really get that communication right, I think.
Definitely. And jumping right into that topic, we've touched on it a bit. Let's go a little bit deeper into the communication that we've been seeing with this game, and maybe we hop back into kind of what we want to see with the beta towards the end of the episode. But the communication around this game started off very strong. Actually, it started off very weak, but it was a marketing ploy in terms of getting people hyped and then playing with people's emotions. They had something big planned. It didn't go well. J-Dodd talked about this in his newsletter, which is fantastic. It's called, Check Your DMs? Fantastic. I love reading it anytime he writes it. So highly recommend that. But he was talking about how they had this really big plan of the idea of something big, and it just did not work. And that's when they switched to what we ended up getting, which was the amazing coordination between all of the games glitching out, all of the social medias glitching out. Like, it was a really, really well done marketing campaign.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it started really strong, like you said, and even with that like little speed bump that they had where it didn't actually go as planned, and they still sort of managed to like pivot and fix it. So yeah, the start of the little campaign they've had was really, really good, I thought. And really just until now, I think it's been good. They've had that. They had the gameplay trailer just a few days later. That mixed with like, getting the influencers involved and getting more information out there. They didn't need to do like a big live stream and tell everyone. They just had to drop a trailer and tell the influencers, and then everyone just made their own videos, and I think that's a great way of doing it. So almost in a way they like gave the communication to us and like let us do it a little bit. So I thought it's been really good, but yeah, it's just it's slowed down a bit, and I think that's why people are stressed, because it has been good, and then when it's been good and then it goes quiet, you start going, oh geez, is this getting delayed? Is there something wrong? Like, and that's why. Yeah, I just think that's why they really need to get on top of it. They've set the tone now that they're going to do things the way that they have, and now they have to stick to that, I think.
Mm-hmm. They really do. They really do need to I mean, a community management is a relationship between the business side of things and the people that are going to be buying the product. And a relationship always benefits from communication. Strategic communication for sure in this case, but communication, even if it is bad news, if you can hop on it before people start freaking out and making videos about the beta going downhill and that the game's going to get delayed and that yeah, you need to stop it before it gets to that point. Like when it gets to that point, you've known that you went too late with communication.
Yeah, I think like you said, I think bad news is actually better than no news. Like I'd rather them just say like the game's delayed. I'd rather hear that than just not hear anything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think when the longer they go without saying something, the more people start going, oh, like yeah, we've seen all these other games delayed. Is Battlefield now delayed? And then you get a ton of clickbait videos like, oh, Battlefield 2042 is delayed until November, and it's just all fake news. But it gets out of control, and you can't really squish that once it's happened unless you actually just say like that's wrong, and it's better to just do that before it actually happens in the first place.
Nip it in the bud before it starts to bloom.
Yeah, the only thing that makes me like curious is that maybe because like we said at the start of their little campaign, like the game was kind of leaking and they didn't do anything, and that was I don't know for a fact, but I'm assuming that was a part of their plan. They just knew that it was leaking, and they did nothing about it because it was like people were talking about it and they didn't even have a trailer yet. They technically hadn't spent $1, and people were talking about the game. So whether they're doing that again now by getting us to all, it's just constantly being talked about, and even though it's maybe a little bit negative at the moment, it could still be their plan. Just like, oh, everyone's still talking about Battlefield and they're going to get the beta eventually. So I don't know. This is kind of what we're saying. They're leaving the door open for so many speculations and all this type of thing. And I think they just need to, unless, like I said, maybe it is their plan.
You want to kind of control that narrative.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it is just their plan that they don't care about the narrative and they just want people talking about the game. And if that's the case, then fair play to them. But
it's definitely working.
As a fan, it's definitely a little bit frustrating when that is the case, I think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think we're all in the same boat. Content creators for sure are very, I mean, we all want things to talk about, and now that there's nothing, like even people that aren't content creators are getting a little antsy. I had a video that blew up and got close to like 10,000 views, and most of the comments were kind of, we had the ones like, oh, we haven't seen anything because like it's coming out soon and they want to surprise us. Like, okay, fine, you can have that viewpoint, but it's there was a few people that said, yep, I saw that, hey, this is not looking too great. I've got a bad feeling about this. I'm going to cancel my pre-order and just wait to see.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like they are playing with real like purchases of the game. Some people might have pre-ordered or they might have been about to pre-order, and then they're like, I had really high hopes, but this is looking like a Battlefield 5 situation all over again. I'm just not going to bother. So yeah, again, whether they don't care about that small percentage of people and they just want the rest of us to be talking about it, who knows? But yeah, it's just a odd way of doing things, I think.
I know if I personally was not covering Battlefield content, I would not have pre-ordered the game just because of the past experiences that I've had with pre-orders, and I would wait to see until the beta comes out, and now it's like, it's interesting that they're pushing the beta out a little further than we thought they would. And like, I don't think this is the latest that we've seen a beta in terms of beta to release, but it is up there with the closeness.
Yeah, I think like most, well, at least this is what I remember, but maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like most games, like Battlefield or not, they tend to, the beta is at least a month before. I feel like maybe 6 to 4 weeks before the game launches, but this is going to be literally like, well, again, we don't know for sure, but it's seeming like it's going to be about 3 weeks before, and by the time it ends, it's closer to 2 weeks. So yeah, it's just odd. I don't really, yeah, I still don't really. The more I think about it, the more confused I get, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So Sawtooth75 had this tweet said, "Today it's exactly 6 weeks to early access. Given the bad aftertaste people still have from Battlefield 5, the successful teaser campaign before reveal, and for the Exodus short film, no word about the beta yet and no reveal of Hazard Zone yet." So it's interesting here.
Very confusing, and that's the gist of it, really. It doesn't, personally, to me, make that much sense the way that they're doing it, but the only logical thing that I can point towards is that, yeah, maybe it's just part of their plan. Like, I just don't really know, but
yeah,
I think if it's not part of their plan, then they're failing pretty bad with the communication, and the weird part is that, like, communication would have to be the easiest part, surely, of game development. It's free. You just have to tweet something.
Mm-hmm.
It takes like 2 minutes, and they can't do that. So it's I think that's why it's so frustrating. It's not like we're, say, waiting on DLC, and we know that takes a long time, right? But just communicating does not take a long time. I know that internally they have to all agree. They have to, like, have meetings on when
but that's
happen and that type of stuff.
A them problem. It's not an us problem, because other companies, other game development companies, are a lot quicker on that discussion. So it's definitely a confirmation thing, because you look at something like Respawn. If something's going wrong in the community, they are very on it in terms of communicating with the players.
That's the thing. Like, because obviously I think communication does probably take longer than we know, because, like I said, if they want to confirm the beta dates, they have to obviously they'd have to have meetings to confirm that internally. But just plan those meetings earlier in the year. Don't leave it until now. Like, they should have the plan from day one, that if they know it's dropping in September, then by at least the middle of August, they should have already confirmed everything, unless obviously there's just something comes up and, like, the game's busted and they have to delay it or something. But if everything's going to plan, they should have confirmed all of that internally weeks, if not months ago. And then from there is no time frame for how long it takes to communicate. You literally just have to tweet it. Like, you could do it in a matter of minutes. Just say, we're confirming that the dates are starting on blah blah blah. So
exactly,
like you said, that's not an us problem. They need to, maybe the communication externally, like to us, isn't that bad, but maybe internally that's where it's bad. Like they just need to fix that. Something's gone wrong somewhere, because I don't see this with most other games. Obviously, some games are still a little bit like, everything's so like secretive, I guess, in gaming.
Run your business as a business, guys. That's so I do a lot of marketing for tech companies outside of the podcast, and it's like, I have never seen this type of. The only type of management that I see of video games is in video games. Nothing else in tech works this way.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the whole secretive, like, approach, that it's not just EA and DICE. Like, a lot of games have this. I don't get it. I don't understand why everything has to be so secretive. I know that they can't just, like, they can plan, hey, we're making Battlefield 2042, and they planned that 3 years ago. They can't just give us a release date then. Obviously, like, things need to be planned out. But, like, I don't know what it is with gaming, but it's always just so secretive and so, like, behind closed doors, when I just don't think it needs to be. I don't know why. Like, you don't need to plan out your trailers to be, like, the big reveal, because if you just say a word about your game, people will be excited. Like, gamers are pretty easy to please when you actually, in terms of, like, communication anyway, maybe not.
Yeah, you can literally just communicate the bare minimum and people will be fine.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the part that I don't get, is that, like, it was always the same with Battlefront. And I think there's maybe a bit of a difference with Battlefront, because it was
mean, there's
partly
a reason for
Lucasfilm.
that because they have to go. Disney just does not really commit to gaming
Yeah.
quite yet.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a Disney problem, which filters down to Lucasfilm, which has always been super secretive. And then it goes into EA, which is also another level of approvals, which goes then to DICE, which we've already seen the issues they have with that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense
Yeah.
on that front, but still, come on, guys.
Yeah. I just think like you can always like communication can always be better. There's never a perfect level. You don't just like achieve 100% communication. Like that just doesn't happen. So
You don't get a badge and then you're good for the rest of your
Yeah.
life.
yeah. So that's to me that's the thing that they need to improve the most is I think the games are always great and I think there's obviously issues with them, but overall the Battlefield games I think are all pretty great. The communication is like almost always terrible. There's never really been the only time in DICE's history that I can remember good communication was with Ben Walk, and even then, he had his hands tied because of the Lucasfilm stuff. So
Yeah.
I just think I think it can be done so much better. And the crazy part to me is that it is literally free. You don't have to invest thousands upon thousands of dollars. Obviously, you have to hire like a community manager, but they've already got community managers and stuff. Like just tweeting and posting on Reddit, it is free. It doesn't take weeks on weeks.
Yeah,
I
you
know
don't even
that
have
they
to promote it.
cross-check
Let all the content creators spread it. Like there is
Exactly.
no management that's needed there.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I mentioned this earlier and I found the tweet. Lossy tweeted this, and it's the beta and release dates of the previous Battlefield games. And Battlefield 3 the beta was September 27th, and the launch was October 25th. The Battlefield 4 was launched on October 29th, and the beta was October 1st, which is wild. Battlefield 1 was August 31st, and the launch was October 21st. I mean, it's a clear correlation, man. August 31st and October 21st gave them just the right amount of time to make that the best Battlefield game ever, honestly.
Yeah. That's a great example. Like, look at that. And we got it so early, and that game launched really well. Like it had issues. Every game has issues when they launch, but it was like,
even Battlefield 4, which I think a lot of people forget, that the launch of Battlefield 4 was not as successful as a lot of people remember it.
Yeah, it was actually quite a disaster, to be honest. So, it's like, that I feel like that's a prime example of what we've been saying the whole podcast. Like the game that I think has been. Like, obviously, a lot of people have their own opinions on Battlefield 1 because of the setting or the lack of customization or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't perfect. But I think most people surely agree that it was a pretty well-run game. There was never I can't remember anyway, like, any game-breaking issues with it. There was never, like, a lack of content. There was never anything like that. It was just, if you don't like that game, it's mostly just because you don't like the game. So the fact that the game ran well and the beta was well before launch, I feel like that isn't just a coincidence, to be honest.
Coincidence? I think not. It's very fascinating to me to see this. And again, communication. If they communicated the whole process, I think we'd be a lot more forgiving of it, because the more you know, a little more forgiving you'll be. Like if you understand what the developers and I feel for the person running the social media and all of that. Like I understand the stresses and the confirmation, but like seriously, the people that are in charge of that, they definitely need to give them the tools that they need to properly promote the game.
Yeah, and that's you made a good point there in that, like, we see it with a few other games. I remember Skate released that, like, little behind-the-scenes video, and just things like that. Like, give people transparency on how games are made, because if you
that video probably cost like $5,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and like even just tweeting out, I remember I think it was when the like clone commandos dropped in Battlefront 2, and they tweeted out like the GIFs of them and stuff, sort of explaining how they were made and just giving people information. And it just helps people know, like, okay, this
Yeah, they
isn't
even
as
showed the
simple
gray
as I thought it
box.
was. Yeah, exactly. And like doing some of that before launch, I feel like that's a great way to have some communication that they don't need to be confirming dates and all this type of thing. They can just talk about, like, you know, this is why we're doing the beta at this time, because it helps us with this, this, and this. And if we do it earlier, then it doesn't help as much with this, this, and this. And like, just talk about it. Like, I don't know why it all has to be so secretive. You look at like Mando last week, they just released that gallery episode, and they literally explained the entire way that they made the final episode.
Mm-hmm.
So now when shows in the future are being made and maybe something gets delayed, people will go, oh, it sucks, but like, we've seen how that works. I'd rather it be really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just transparency on how, like, I think 99% of people who play games have zero idea on how games are made. And even guys like us who are pretty involved, we still have very little idea on it. So,
because every single company does it differently.
Yeah. So having it just a bit more out in the open and giving people information, whether it's the dates of the beta or whether it's why this isn't as easy as we think or blah, blah, blah. Like, that type of stuff is just so much better. Like, you look at what Skate did and people are kind of mad that it was, you know, I don't know if it was it delayed or I can't remember what happened there, but I think they said that it wasn't ready when they wanted it to be or whatever the case.
People were excited that it was possibly going to be shown at EA Play, and they went ahead and said, no, we won't be at EA Play, but we are still working on it, and here's kind of like an inner look at what's going on.
Yeah, and that's when they tweeted that out, I remember like just an overwhelming positive response. Everyone was like still disappointed that they wouldn't get to see it, but they now know more about how it works and that type of thing. And I've never seen any company tweet something like that where it's a bit more information and people have been unhappy with it. I've always seen positive responses. So yeah, I think that's something they need to do a little better. And like, if let's just say, for example, it takes 6 months to release the first map after launch, show some stuff like what Skate did of behind the scenes, like how they're making the map.
I love that.
Yeah, and just say like, look, it's going to be 6 months until we get the first map and we know that sucks. This is what it takes to make the map. This is, you know, we've got X amount of people working on it, and do a quick little interview with 2 of the people who make it. And that's all we need to know. And then people will go, okay, damn, that sucks. It's 6 months away.
Yeah.
But like, we know a bit more.
And then
now.
you feel smarter because you're like, oh, hey, look, I know how this is going to work. Just hire cinematic captures to go out there for a couple weeks, make a really awesome video, and then boom, everyone's happy.
Exactly. So yeah, I think just, the communication in general, communication doesn't need to be telling us the dates of the beta or telling us this or that. It can be anything. Just literally give us any information and people will enjoy that more than just no tweets from the main account. Because when we're all sitting here waiting for the beta, we know it's this month, and then you check the Twitter account every day and there's nothing. That's so deflating, and it does allow those doubts to sort of creep into your mind a bit.
Exactly. One thing I want to end on is I'm just very fascinating why they skipped Gamescom. I don't think we had a chance to talk about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, they skipped Gamescom, and we historically they've always been about Gamescom. Like, it's one of the biggest game showings in the world of the year, and there just wasn't anything, and it was very fascinating. I mean, I don't even think they showed FIFA. No,
I think there was no EA there. I don't know for a fact, but I don't think anything EA was at Gamescom, it just felt weird. It was like, what, like, yeah, well, that's like the main thing that I kind of go there for. There's always like the bigger games, and there was nothing from EA. So I'm not really sure. I made a video on it last week that maybe, like we were saying, that their marketing for this game has been a bit different. So like, maybe they just, you know, Call of Duty was there. Maybe they just want their own separate thing. So they haven't, because when you think about it, they haven't actually done, I mean, EA Play is different because that's an EA event that's not tied with anything else. So it's kind of different. But even the reveal, that wasn't that was actually before E3. So they did their own separate thing. So, like, whether they just don't want the typical way of marketing and stuff, and we've seen that. We saw J-Dodd sort of say that we're looking at doing a different way of marketing with involving creators and stuff like that. So that's really the only thing I can like point towards, that maybe it's just their marketing plan's a bit different this year. But yeah, it was just weird. They should have just said at least though, like, there's nothing at Gamescom. This is again coming back to communication. Like, we go into Gamescom expecting Battlefield because there's been one for every single title since Bad Company 2.
Yeah.
If they know that there's nothing there, just say in a tweet, there's nothing at Gamescom. It's really not that hard to do that. And people might be a bit disappointed, but I can guarantee you people will be more disappointed if they've sat there through about 5 hours worth of content for no mention of the game. So
I know I was.
Yep, I literally streamed the whole thing, and I thought the game, like Gamescom in general, was really good, so that was fine. It was like kind of made up for it a bit, but yeah, I was pretty frustrated that I sat there, got up at 3 a.m. every day to watch it, and at 5 a.m. every day I was like, well, that was a waste of my day. So
yeah, but it's one of those things.
Went
It's
back
like
to bed.
I gotta at least try, because if I don't, that's when it's gonna be showed.
Yeah.
But I was so deflated by that. Like, the only thing that saved that experience for me was the Lego Star Wars game we got more details on the gameplay of it. But like, after that loss of time, I was like, I'm not gonna do this again. If it does come out, I'll just catch it when it does. I'm not sitting through this again.
Every time there's one of those, because like a lot of people stream them and get ready to make content straight away. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing for me is that they're like, those events are always at like 2 to 4 a.m. time, like in the day. So,
and this one was even weirder because it's in Germany too. So it was like an even different experience.
Yeah. So yeah, it's always like, when it doesn't happen, it just makes me think like, okay, well, next time there's something like that, I'm just not going to wake up. And if I wake up and there's been an announcement, then I'll see it then. But I'm not doing that anymore. So
yeah,
I think that's, again, just comes back to the fact that they need to just tweet and just say there's nothing at Gamescom. Like, that's just so simple. And people will be mad. That's probably why they don't do it, because they know
but people will be mad after the fact.
Yeah,
you're not saving yourself anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't really get it. I don't get why they do that, but we've seen it with, heaps of people at EA Play said there'll be nothing here, and I think people were generally like kind of gracious that they said that. They were like, oh yeah, that's annoying, but we're like, thanks for saying that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't get it. I don't know what the go is with that.
Yeah, I don't know either. It's very interesting to me, but I do think we have a lot of fascinating experiences. Even if the game is kind of subpar, the whole lead up to it is definitely going to be memorable.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of the more, like, I guess, intriguing marketing campaigns. There's not really that many that I can remember beforehand. The only really ones, like, I remember Apex because it didn't have one at all. So
exactly.
That's kind of one. But yeah, there's not really that many other games that I can remember, like the big lead up, I guess, Battlefront 2, because that was really exciting. But most Call of Duty games, I don't care for I never remember like the hype leading up to it. I just remember the game itself. But I think I will remember this like lead up because it's been really, really good at times. And it's also been really like just weird, I guess.
I think something that also is very interesting to me is the fact that they seem to be marketing to Battlefield players instead of really expanding their reach beyond that.
I'm curious. I'm really, really curious, like more than I was for the game itself and even for Portal. I'm really curious to see what Hazard's Zone is, because I feel like that could be their thing that's like marketed towards everyone, like a Warzone or an Apex or whatever. If that is some, like it's obviously hinted to be that, like, not a battle royale, but a battle royale type of thing, like a really intense mode. And if it is, I think that will do really well for, like, just general gamers. I think a lot of people will get into the game because of that. But, Yeah, that's the only thing that makes me think it's okay at the moment that they haven't marketed towards like everyone, because I feel like Hazard Zone will be that thing, but if it's not, then yeah, they really haven't marketed to like the general shooter like gamers. It's just Battlefield gamers, really.
Mm-hmm. It is, and it's so fascinating to me to see this game marketed the way it is. I mean, even throughout the whole marketing launch and everything, the short film is not going to be marketed to people who are outside of the game. Like, that is for people that are already going to be buying the game. It's not coming to any new audiences. And like on the opposite side of things, you've got Call of Duty. Even though the people that play Call of Duty are going to pick up the game no matter what game it is, they're still marketing to everyone to get those people interested.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very very stark contrast between the two. And again, whether that's on purpose, maybe they just don't, maybe they just want to get back on track with the franchise and they just want to like market through the Battlefield fans. And
which they kind of need to do because they left them on the wayside last game.
Yeah, so that could be it. Like maybe they're just like, okay, the next game can be the bigger game, but this is just like to get back on track. And if that's the case, that's fair enough. But yeah, it's just a weird. I don't think they necessarily. I think you can market towards everyone while still marketing towards the Battlefield fans. Like I don't think they need to. It's not mutually exclusive. So yeah, it's a weird contrast between Call of Duty and Battlefield. But it's also, this is kind of how it always goes. So it's not that surprising, really.
Yeah. But I think with that, we've covered the broad span of the open beta as well as the weird communication and marketing that they've got going for this game. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Battlefield Show. Definitely check out Sammy's channel as well as Uplink Podcast, because we do create content over there as well. Actually, the video that blew up, someone discovered that we upload this podcast through the YouTube. They found out the YouTube channel that we post this podcast on through this other video. Which is pretty crazy. It's wild to see. So if you do enjoy the content that both Sammy and I create, check out each of our individual channels and just give us a like and give us a follow there as well. Really been enjoying the content Sammy's been producing. I caught up on all his content today, and he did have some really good points. So definitely go check it out down below as well. Thank you all so much. If you'd like to support this podcast, definitely do consider sharing it with your Battlefield buddies, as well as leaving us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Helps us out a ton. I think we've got up to 7 now, and we really appreciate each and every one of those. So thank you so much for that. We'd like to thank Ethan Clark for the beautiful thumbnail, and we'll see you on the battlefield.